Have you ever stayed awake waiting for his reply, your screen glowing in the dark, only to be met with silence that cuts deeper than words ever could? You replay the last exchange in your mind, wondering if one misplaced phrase cost you his attention. The absence becomes louder than his presence ever was. That silence begins to feel like control, though he never raised his voice or made a demand. It is the kind of invisible grip that leaves no bruises, yet reshapes your sense of worth. This is how unseen control begins. It hides in the subtle pauses, the delayed replies, the way he looks through you as if you were never there. At first you call it confusion, maybe even your own insecurity. But soon the confusion grows teeth, whispering that maybe you are the problem. And once that whisper settles in, he doesn't need to do anything at all. The cage is already closing. Boundaries are not about saying no to others. They are about saying yes to yourself. Yet most women learn to blur them early, believing love means sacrifice, and sacrifice means proof of devotion. You give more than you receive, and in that imbalance, the other person gains quiet power. He doesn't even need to ask for it. You hand it over in silence, thinking it makes you irreplaceable. But what it truly makes you is compliant. Carl Jung once wrote that the things we deny in ourselves hold the greatest sway over us. The shadow you ignore, your fear of abandonment, your hunger for approval, becomes the lever others use to bend your will. He doesn't need to raise his hand or voice. He only needs to step on the cracks you refuse to acknowledge. And each time you fold, you teach him where those cracks are. This is how control becomes invisible, yet absolute. Imagine the moment he leans in close, lowering his tone so that his words sound like secrets. Your body tenses not because of the words, but because of the way he makes you doubt your own instincts. You feel the weight of his gaze, the slow curl of suggestion, the silence stretching like a rope. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice says no. But that voice is faint, drowned beneath the fear of losing him. That is how boundaries die, one silenced instinct at a time. Yet within the same shadow lies the key. The instinct you ignore is the instinct that can set you free. When you reclaim it, when you trust it, you become more than someone reacting to the pull of another. You become sovereign. A woman who can hold her silence without making it punishment, whose absence speaks not of weakness but of choice. To embody that is to step into the archetype of the shadow queen, who rules not through force, but through the refusal to be ruled. But freedom demands confrontation, and confrontation isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like holding his gaze when he expects you to look away. Sometimes it sounds like the simple word no, spoken without apology. The power of boundaries is not in their sharpness, but in their consistency. A wall is only trusted if it does not crumble. And when a woman holds her wall with quiet conviction, the games that once bound her dissolve into dust. Still, the fear lingers. What if he leaves? What if the silence becomes permanent? This is the paradox. When you fear his absence, you remain trapped. When you can face that absence without breaking, you are free. The boundary is forged not in rejection of him, but in acceptance of yourself. And once that acceptance takes root, control can no longer find purchase in your life. It is like trying to grasp smoke. His tactics lose weight against a woman who has become whole. But there's a darker truth hidden here. The more you resist his control, the more desperate he may become to keep it. A man who thrives on unseen power does not surrender it easily. And when the games escalate, so too must your inner strength. Which means the next stage of boundary work is not defense, but revelation. The moment you see through every trick and stand unmoved. That is when the cage door truly swings open. But before you can step out, you must ask yourself, do you even believe you deserve that kind of freedom? Deserving freedom sounds simple, but it is the most difficult threshold to cross. Because beneath every surrendered boundary lies a secret bargain. If you give enough, bend enough, stay quiet enough, maybe love will finally feel secure. That bargain is poison, but it tastes sweet at first. It makes you believe that sacrifice ensures safety, when in truth it only ensures captivity. Safety purchased through silence is not safety at all. It is submission dressed as devotion. Look closely at the pattern. You say yes when your body says no. You let him enter your space, your time, your mind, without ever checking if you actually want it. And when the unease rises, you call it overthinking. That denial feeds his control, even if he never consciously asks for it. He learns, through your hesitation, that you will not enforce the line. And, like water, he flows into every crack left unguarded, until you wonder how you lost yourself in someone else's current. The siren archetype teaches us another truth. True allure is not in how much you give, but in how much you withhold. The silence of a woman who knows her value speaks louder than any words. The pause before she answers, the certainty in her withdrawal, the way she makes distance feel like a mirror of your own desire. This is not cruelty, it is sovereignty. The siren draws not by begging for attention, but by embodying such presence that attention seeks her out. Boundaries for her are not barriers. They are the very contours of her enchantment. And yet this is where fear claws back in. For many women, holding a boundary feels like punishment. What if he thinks you are cold, heartless, ungrateful? But the truth is far sharper. If the only way to keep his affection is to abandon yourself, then his affection was never for you in the first place. It was for the fragments you sacrificed. Every time you betray yourself to keep him close, you teach him that your love is conditional upon his approval. That is not love. It is dependency masked as devotion. Jung spoke often of projection, the way we see in others the parts of ourselves we cannot face. When you crave his validation, you are not really craving him. You are craving the forgotten part of yourself you exiled long ago, the part that longs to be chosen without conditions. He becomes the screen onto which you project your hunger. That is why he feels magnetic, why his silence feels unbearable. It is not about him. It is about the shadow you avoid. And until you reclaim it, you will keep chasing men who mirror that absence. Imagine a crowded room, music pulsing, voices blurring together. Across the space, he glances at you, then turns away as if you were invisible. Your chest tightens, your mind spins, and suddenly the entire evening feels hollow. You wonder what you did wrong, though you did nothing at all. That moment of invisibility becomes a hook that pierces deeper than attention ever could. But here is the secret. What he withholds reveals nothing about your worth. It only reveals the place within you that still believes worth must be proven. Once you see that, the spell begins to break. The Shadow Queen rises in those moments. She does not crumble under neglect because her throne is built within. She may feel the sting, but she does not let it rewrite her value. Her silence is not desperation, it is dominion. When she chooses to respond, it is deliberate. When she chooses to withdraw, it is absolute. And in that quiet sovereignty, every attempt at control collapses. For power games require compliance, and she offers none. But beware, the path to this power is not without cost. To claim it, you must let go of the illusions that once kept you safe. The illusion that he will change if you love harder. The illusion that silence means stability. The illusion that sacrifice will buy permanence. These illusions die hard because they shield you from the raw truth. Freedom will require loss. And loss terrifies the part of you that still clings to fairy tales. Yet without that death, there is no rebirth. Without the end of the illusion, there can be no beginning of sovereignty. Picture standing at a window at night, city lights flickering like distant stars. Your phone is silent, his name absent from the screen. For a moment, loneliness presses heavy against your chest, but then something shifts. You realize the silence is not empty, it is spacious. It is room for yourself, unclaimed and untouched. In that space, you hear a voice that has been buried for years. It does not beg, it does not plead. It whispers a truth both frightening and liberating. You no longer need him to know who you are. And that realization sparks the next question, the one that burns deeper than all the rest. If you no longer need him, what will you build in his absence? What you build in his absence reveals more than what you tolerated in his presence. Because absence is a canvas, and every boundary you draw upon it shapes the life you step into. At first, that canvas feels frighteningly blank. There is no familiar voice to check in with, no habitual cycle of waiting, no constant tension of wondering what he thinks. But slowly, the blankness shifts into possibility. You see that every moment once spent anticipating him can now be claimed by you. And what you claim, you become. The high priestess archetype emerges in this silence. She is not concerned with proving her worth, nor with chasing recognition. She retreats into herself, not as escape, but as initiation. Her strength comes from the unseen, from trusting her intuition even when it contradicts desire. She knows that the world outside mirrors the world within, and so she guards her inner temple fiercely. Every boundary she sets is not a wall to keep others out, but a circle to keep her energy sacred. In her control cannot enter, because her sovereignty is not up for negotiation. But stepping into this archetype requires courage most never practice. The courage to disappoint others, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to hold silence even when it costs you closeness. Boundaries are not comfortable, they are crucibles. They burn away the illusion that you can keep everyone happy. And when the fire clears, only what is essential remains. That essence is your true power, unshakable and magnetic. It is the kind of power that cannot be borrowed, only embodied. Still, the temptation of old patterns lingers. He may resurface, sending a message late at night as if nothing happened. He may test the edges of your resolve with casual charm, reminding you of what once felt intoxicating. In that moment, you feel the pull, familiar, haunting, almost irresistible. But the difference now is awareness. You see not just the man, but the game. You recognize the rhythm of neglect and return, the cycle of withdrawal and pursuit. And once you see it, the spell weakens. For magic only works in the dark. In the light of awareness, it becomes theater. There is also rage, and it is sacred. For years, you swallowed it, disguising anger as patience, masking fury as forgiveness. But beneath those masks, rage simmered, waiting for release. Rage is not destruction, it is the signal that a boundary has been crossed. It is the body's way of saying no more. When harnessed, rage becomes clarity. It sharpens your voice, steadies your hand, roots your feet. You no longer explain yourself endlessly. You state the truth and let it stand. That is the moment rage transforms from chaos into sovereignty. And yet, sovereignty does not mean isolation. Boundaries are not built to keep love out. They are built to ensure love that enters is true. Without them, connection becomes control. With them, connection becomes choice. And choice is the essence of freedom. When you choose who enters your space, who hears your silence, who holds your time, you reclaim not only your power but your desire. Desire is no longer a hook used against you. It becomes the compass guiding you toward what is worthy. Imagine walking through a crowded cafe, voices rising and falling like waves. For the first time, you notice how much energy moves toward you when you are not reaching outward. A stranger glances twice, sensing something he cannot name. Friends lean in closer, drawn by the calm in your presence. Even your silence carries weight because it is no longer empty, it is sovereign. This is the paradox. The less you seek control, the more you command it, because control is never taken, it is surrendered. And you have stopped surrendering. But the deeper you step into this new power, the clearer you see the cost of your old self. You remember the nights of waiting, the mornings of confusion, the ache of being invisible. You realize that those memories are not just scars, they are teachers. They show you exactly where you gave yourself away. And now, with each memory recalled, you draw another line in the sand. That line says, never again. Never again will you let silence dictate your value. Never again will you barter your soul for temporary affection. Never again will you confuse control for care. Yet the journey is not finished. Awareness is only the first act, confrontation the second. The ascent is still ahead, and ascent demands not just boundaries but embodiment, the weaving of your shadow into your strength. To rise, you must not only resist control but transform the very energy that once bound you. And the question lingers, heavy and electric. Are you ready to face the shadow not in him, but in yourself? To face the shadow in yourself is to step into a room without light. Every corner whispers with doubts you thought belonged only to him. But now you see the mirror. His control was only ever a reflection of the control you abandoned within. The times you silenced your instincts, the moments you laughed off disrespect, the way you swallowed truth to stay wanted, each silence became an invitation. Each compromise became permission. And though he played his part, it was your shadow that opened the door. Jung said the shadow is not just darkness, it is potential, raw and untamed. The fear of abandonment is also the hunger for belonging. The ache of invisibility is also the fire of presence. The rage of betrayal is also the seed of truth. When you repress these forces, they turn against you, bending your choices toward captivity. But when you face them, when you name them without shame, they transform into power. The shadow does not disappear, it becomes your ally. And in that alliance, no unseen control can take root again. But this is no gentle process. Shadow work strips you bare. You remember the first time you allowed someone to cross a line, the sting of betrayal you swallowed instead of speaking. You remember the moments you knew you were being used, yet told yourself it was love. Each memory strikes like a shard of glass, cutting through the illusions you wrapped around yourself. And it hurts, the kind of hurt that makes you want to run back into distraction. But if you stay, if you hold steady in that discomfort, something shifts. The shards become mirrors, and in each reflection, you see not weakness but survival. You see the woman who endured, and that woman is far stronger than the one who denied the wound. Imagine standing before a mirror in a dimly lit room. At first, the reflection feels fractured, too many pieces missing. But as your eyes adjust, you notice something else. Those missing pieces were never lost. They were hidden, waiting. Rage, desire, grief, longing, all the parts you buried are still there, shimmering beneath the surface. When you invite them back, the reflection changes. It is no longer fragmented, it is whole. Wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is the willingness to hold light and dark together without shame. That is the heart of individuation, the alchemy of the soul. Yet integration is not silent. As you reclaim what was once denied, the world around you reacts. He may feel your shift even from a distance. Suddenly the games don't work the way they used to. The silences he once used as shackles fall flat. The tests he sets dissolve before they reach you. You respond differently, not with anger, not with submission, but with clarity. And clarity is the one thing control cannot withstand. Because control feeds on confusion, thrives on doubt. Without those, it starves. Still, the most dangerous shadow is not his. It is the part of you that longs for the familiar cage. Freedom can feel unbearable at first. The silence you once feared now stretches vast, echoing with possibilities. And possibility can be terrifying. Because in possibility, there are no excuses left. No one else to blame. No one else to hold accountable. Only you. That responsibility feels heavier than control ever did. But it is also the weight of a crown. To wear it, you must accept that your life is yours alone to build. That is the true boundary, the line between who you were and who you are becoming. The archetype of the femme fatale flickers here, not as manipulation but as reclamation. Her power lies not in bending others but in refusing to bend herself. She does not beg, she does not plead. She makes no apologies for her presence. Desire bends toward her not because she schemes, but because she embodies unapologetic self-possession. In her, we see what boundaries can become when they move beyond defense. They are no longer walls, but flames, burning bright enough that only those who can stand the heat will step closer. Everyone else falls away. Picture walking down a street at dusk, heels striking pavement, air heavy with late summer heat. Once you would have scanned the crowd for his face, hoping for recognition. Now you walk as if the entire street belongs to you. People notice without knowing why, the tilt of your head, the measured pace, the energy that hums from within. It is not arrogance. It is sovereignty carried in every step. And in that sovereignty, the invisible chains that once bound you are nowhere to be found. You are no longer haunted by his silence, because your own silence now speaks louder than his absence ever did. But freedom has one more test, because the shadow never disappears, it waits, patient and cunning. And the question it asks is simple, yet devastating. Will you protect your sovereignty even when love itself demands surrender? Love will always demand surrender, but the question is, surrender of what? If love asks you to lay down your boundaries, to erase your voice, to silence your instincts, then it is not love. It is hunger disguised as intimacy. Real love does not thrive on your disappearance. It thrives on your presence, your fullness, your sovereignty. To surrender within true love is not to give yourself away. It is to allow yourself to be seen without armor. But such surrender can only exist once your boundaries are unshakable. Otherwise, surrender is not union. It is collapse. The paradox burns brightly here. The stronger your boundaries, the deeper your capacity for intimacy. Because when you know where you end and another begins, you can join without fear of being swallowed. Your yes becomes real because you know how to say no. Your devotion becomes meaningful because it is chosen, not coerced. This is the highest form of connection, the meeting of two sovereigns, not the absorption of one into another. But to reach it, you must first master the art of standing alone. And this is where many falter. Loneliness whispers its familiar threats, tempting you back into compromise. You remember the thrill of his attention, the way your chest lit up when he finally looked your way. You remember the soft sting of anticipation, the sweet chaos of waiting for his message. These memories feel intoxicating, and they promise relief from the vast silence of sovereignty. But remember, the thrill was never love. It was dependency in disguise, the nervous system confusing chaos for passion. True passion is steady, not frantic. It ignites without consuming. And once you taste that steadiness, you cannot go back to the games. The archetype of the high priestess steadies you here. Her wisdom is not loud, not frantic. She sits in silence, knowing the tides of emotion will rise and fall. She knows that the absence of chaos does not mean absence of life. It means alignment. And in that alignment, she trusts herself more than any fleeting glance or delayed reply. Her devotion is not to the man who withholds, but to the inner voice that never lies. That voice, when honored, becomes the anchor that no unseen control can sever. But wholeness requires more than silence. It requires action. To live boundaries is not just to declare them, but to embody them in every gesture, every choice. You stop answering texts that arrive only in the dark. You stop bending your time around those who never honor it. You stop softening your no into maybe, your truth into half-truths. And each act of embodiment reinforces the wall of sovereignty. Soon, you no longer have to explain your boundaries. They radiate from you, unmistakable. People feel it before you speak. And those who thrive on unseen control drift away because they cannot root themselves in the soil of your wholeness. Yet here lies the final ascent, the place where shadow turns fully into light. Because the truth is, the men who once held power over you were never the true enemy. They were mirrors, necessary and brutal, reflecting the places you abandoned yourself. To hate them is to miss the lesson. To thank them is to release yourself. For in their neglect, you found your worth. In their silence, you discovered your voice. In their control, you learned sovereignty. They were not your jailers, they were your initiators. But now the initiation is complete. You no longer need them to point to your shadow. You can see it, embrace it, and transform it yourself. Imagine a final scene. A room dimly lit, reflections scattered across glass, your own face staring back. The woman who once stayed awake, waiting for his reply, is gone. In her place stands a woman who does not wait, she chooses. Her eyes hold both fire and calm. Her silence is deliberate, her presence undeniable. She knows her shadow. She knows her light. And she no longer fears losing anyone because she has stopped losing herself. This is sovereignty. Not loud, not desperate, but steady, magnetic, unshakable. But even in this clarity, one final question remains, pressing at the edge of your becoming. You know how to guard your boundaries, how to wield them like fire. But will you know how to open them when love that is worthy finally knocks? The test of boundaries is not in their defense, but in their opening. For walls built too high can keep out not only harm, but love itself. True sovereignty is not about closing your gates forever. It is about knowing when to open them and to whom. The woman who fears vulnerability clings to control, but the sovereign woman knows that control is only half the journey. The other half is surrender, but this time, surrender chosen freely, never demanded. You will know the difference. Control feels like shrinking. It asks you to fold yourself smaller, quieter, more obedient. Sovereign surrender feels expansive. It asks you to step forward as you are, unhidden, unashamed. To open your boundaries in this way is not to lose yourself, but to share yourself. And only those who honor your circle, who meet you without games or shadows, are worthy to enter. Boundaries filter not only what drains you, but also reveal what truly nourishes you. Picture standing in the glow of morning light, curtains stirring with a gentle wind. The phone lies silent on the table, but for the first time you don't notice. Your attention is elsewhere, on the steady rhythm of your breath, on the warmth of your own skin, on the quiet power humming through your body. There is no waiting, no wondering, no silent ache for someone else's attention. Instead, there is presence. And in that presence, you realize something life-altering. The love you once begged for now radiates from you. It was never missing, it was misplaced. The siren emerges here, reborn through the fire of shadow and the calm of sovereignty. Her allure is no longer frantic or manipulative. It is magnetic because it is whole. She does not chase, she does not plead. She exists so fully in her own flame that others cannot help but be drawn. And yet, she does not open to all. Her song is not for the masses. It is for the one who can stand before her without needing her to diminish. That is the paradox of her power. The stronger her boundaries, the more irresistible her presence. Every archetype you have walked through, the shadow queen, the high priestess, the femme fatale, the siren, now weaves together. They are no longer masks you wear, but facets of the same sovereign self. You are not fragmented, you are not broken. You are layered, complex, luminous, and fierce. And when you embody all of them, you move through the world differently. Crowds shift around you. Conversations bend toward your silence. Desire meets your eyes and trembles, because you no longer give your power away, you are your power. But power without tenderness is incomplete. The final integration is this: to let your strength hold hands with your softness, to let your no be clear but your yes be radiant, to guard your inner temple but also to invite in the one who approaches with reverence. Sovereignty is not about solitude forever. It is about choice. And choice is the essence of freedom. You no longer live bound by unseen control, because the only control that remains is the one you have chosen, the control of your own self. So when love appears, not as absence that keeps you guessing, not as games that keep you small, but as presence that sees you whole, you will not fear losing yourself. You will not shrink, you will not barter your worth. Instead, you will stand firm in your boundaries, and from that strength you will open. Love will not demand your surrender. You will gift it freely, joyfully, because you know it does not cost you your crown. And in that moment, intimacy becomes not captivity, but liberation. Imagine it, the final scene. A woman walking past her reflection, no longer pausing to wonder if she is enough. She does not chase glances, nor wait for messages that never come. She moves with deliberate grace, her silence heavy with meaning, her presence undeniable. Men notice, but she does not notice them first. The air hums around her as if the world itself bends to her rhythm, because she is no longer haunted by who will choose her. She is the one who chooses. The motif releases here, the truth whispered all along. Boundaries are not cages. They are the architecture of freedom. They are not a prison wall, but the throne upon which you sit. And once you sit upon that throne, no unseen control can ever dethrone you again. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.